Walking in darkness is something that in my life I've become accustomed to. But through each and every one of those darknesses, I had an unreasonable hope, a joy that was beyond what anyone could imagine in those moments. And it was because I had an unwavering sense of God's presence and in His promises. And I'd seen Him work so many times and show up so many times in my life. I was Kelly all the time. I was happy and encouraged and uplifting, and even on my hardest days and all of that, I was okay. I was good because I felt Him with me. When I was 18 years old at college, I was sexually assaulted by a person of authority. It's the first time in my entire life, and the only time in my entire life, that I absolutely felt God had abandoned me. I struggled to understand. I struggled to feel Him. I struggled to seek Him. I felt shame that I could have let myself, that I could have somehow allowed myself to become a victim. I felt hatred for this man that had been so vile. I felt hatred for the people that afterwards I found out had known he was capable of something like that and didn't say anything or come forward. I felt hatred for myself. For the first time in my life, I couldn't find the joy that was so unique to me, that defined me almost. And I would say, I'm gonna fake it until I make it. And I would. God always showed up and filled the gap. And in this time frame, I couldn't. I tried, and everyone around me who cared for me just said, Kelly, you're not okay. I sank into a deep depression and eventually was at a breaking point where, my family finally convinced me to go speak to a counselor, and I came to a point where I had to decide if I was going to still trust the God that I had always trusted. I had to choose to see Him and see that He could bring me out of it. Not that He had done this to me, because that's not the God that I serve, but why He had left me alone in that moment. I had to choose to trust. I had to decide that that's really the God that I know. If that's the God that I've always known, why would this be any different? Why would He not heal me and put me back together this time? And so I started to seek Him more than I had ever sought Him in my life. I started to dig hard into His Word, searching for hope again. I leaned on my family and friends more than I ever had. I leaned on my then new relationship with my now husband, and eventually I got to a place where I forgave that man. He was not going to have control over me. He did not have power over me. And I got to the place where I felt sorry for his life and his hurt, that he was carrying something that dark, because I didn't do this to me. I refused to be a victim because I know I'm a child of God, and I know that He was there to put me back together after that man tried to tear me apart. I knew the call that God had on my life. I knew that I was supposed to be someone that shared about this God who had gotten me through so much. So I was not going to let the darkest day of my life change the definition of my God. And I was not going to let it disqualify me from what I was supposed to do and what I'm called to do. The more I sought Him, the more I found Him. I turned to the things that heal me the most, which is singing and writing and writing poetry and writing lyrics. It opened wounds, and I fought so hard to feel His presence that way again. God gave it back to me, and the scars are still there. It's been 11 years, and this is the first time I've expressed this in this way, but I just kept feeling like God was telling me that the darkness stays in the darkness until you put a light on it. And so I know that there are so many who've experienced things like this. You can't just put a Band-Aid on it and fix it. But God can bring wholeness. He can bring healing. I just keep praying that God will somehow use my brokenness that I've experienced in my life to somehow help someone else see hope through theirs.